Hi, and welcome to Life, Death, and the Space Between podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Amy Robbins, and today, tomorrow, and Friday, I'm going to be dropping some old episodes. I'm re-releasing these episodes as a tribute to my mentor, my friend, my teacher, and who I called my soul mama, Ariana Garrett. Ariana sadly lost her life to cancer this weekend, and to say that I'm devastated would be an understatement. I first started working with Ariana about 5 years ago, and I had, at the time, was rounding out my own therapeutic work in traditional therapy. I had been in therapy, if you've heard me talk, for many, many years. My therapist was retiring, and I felt like I was ready for a new way of being in therapy, of thinking about really shifting towards doing more work around energy and different types of healing, and felt like what better way, as I always have, as to be on the other side of that experience. And so I started with Ariana at the recommendation of a friend. And she and I, over the course of the past five and a half years, not only developed a very, very deep and meaningful, I guess you could call it therapeutic relationship, a coaching relationship, but also a friendship and a mentorship. And I believe that there is no one that can explain the soul better than she could. There was no one who understood the soul better than she did. And there's no one who could certainly help manifest shit faster than she could help manifest shit. She was magical where that is concerned. And it just felt right to me to reshare her wisdom, her knowledge. I'm so grateful that I was able to record it, that I have some of this already, because I'm, as we all do when we lose someone that we love so deeply and so dearly, we scramble to find memories that we have of them to make sure that we don't lose that. And the fact that I have her voice recorded here, that I have meditations that we did together, is so meaningful to me. And I want to just remind all of you of her work in this world, because I feel incredibly blessed that I was able to learn from her. And I feel honestly a little bit lost right now and unsure about how I'm going to move forward without her behind me in a physical body. And it is certainly challenging my faith. It's certainly challenging my belief. And it is definitely forcing me to sort of ratchet up my own meditations right now, my own grounding right now, my own sadness right now, and really pushing me to dig into what it means to lose someone you love when you have a belief system that says that they will carry on the other side. And in the moments where I've been sobbing and wondering how my life will look without her, I've also been questioning. And I think that what I hope that I will find in the coming weeks, and what I do know on some level I will find, is that she is still there with me, but right now that doesn't feel like enough. And so I will continue to grieve, I will continue to miss, and I will continue to wish that she was here in a physical body. And I will continue to also have faith that she will be able to guide me from the other side. And I look forward to our relationship continuing in that way. And I hope that you all can take something from these next couple days of podcasts that I'm sharing with you, that she shared with me, her wisdom, her soul, her light, because it will be missed by so many. And I just hope that you can all take a little piece of her wisdom with you over the next few days. it is my honor to welcome a teacher that I've had the great privilege of learning from to the show.
Oh, thank you, Amy. It is so good to be here. I'm
I'm,
very happy to be on your podcast.
I'm so excited. We've been talking about this for a long time, so it's excited that it finally came to fruition. Um, so,
Yes,
so
beautiful.
today we're going to spend some time digging into the concept of soul. And this is a concept that you've taught me a lot about. And I really want to expose the listeners to this notion of soul. So, can you describe for me what is your understanding of the concept of a soul?
Yeah, Amy, that's a great question because people have all kinds of different understandings of the word soul and use it in different ways. So, the way that I use the word soul is as a word to describe your higher self or your true nature, your kind of the pure consciousness within. And there are different qualities that are the natural qualities of the soul. And there are three that are the primary qualities. So, when speaking of the soul, what you're really speaking of are these three qualities. And the first one is love. And it is that capacity to experience at one-ment or unity with another person or with nature or with all of life. And so the quality of love is an inherent capacity of the soul. The next quality of the soul is presence. And that is just the ability to show up, to be right here, right now, and to have your awareness on what's happening in the present moment. And that's a natural quality of the soul. And then the last one is this quality of creative intelligence. So, our soul or our higher self is naturally creative, it's naturally intelligent, and it's always kind of putting together new combinations. And you think about the great artists who put together combinations of colors or words or images into new creative combinations. That is the energy of the soul moving through those people. So when we speak of the soul and the higher self, we're really speaking about love and presence and this creative capacity that we all have.
So, is the notion that we're always, or we should always be striving to bring those three pieces into our lives, or
Mhm.
cultivate those three parts of ourselves?
Absolutely. And, a lot of people are, interested in discovering their soul purpose or, what they're
Yeah,
here.
people say that a lot.
hmm And, the collective soul purpose that we all have as human beings has to do with the expression of those qualities of the soul more fully in our lives every day. So, whenever we're expanding our capacity to love, we're on purpose. We're on soul purpose when we're doing that. Whenever we're creating solutions to problems, and not when I talk about creativity, I'm just not talking about the creativity of an artist, but creative living. We're expressing the qualities of the soul. So, in a nutshell, it's like our purpose is to show up, to be present in
Mm.
this time and place, and to learn to express and live love and creativity more fully.
Well, and I love that because when you say the soul's purpose is to show up,
hmm
that really
hmm
simplifies things. I think a lot
Yeah.
of times people are like searching and searching. What is my purpose? What is my soul here to do? And if it's just to show up,
uh-huh.
then that's it, I mean, I know it's not simple, but it's a great
uh-huh.
place, I think, for people to start. It's like,
Yeah.
how are you showing up for your life?
Yeah, well, and what the soul is more about qualities of being. And so that showing up is a quality of being that is present, that is aware of what's happening right in front of them, moment to moment. And again, the love is not necessarily a particular act or a particular expression of that love, but a mode of being that the soul naturally has. So we're calling those in to our lives, and when we're on soul purpose, it's when we are endeavoring to express and work with them and be those qualities more and more each day.
So when you're talking about soul purpose, you're talking, I think people often look externally.
Yes. Yeah, they think of it as, oh, I'm going to write a book, or I'm going to do this or that, or start an organization, or I'm going to teach or heal, or something like that. But those things are expressions of those soul qualities. And those things change through a lifetime. You may do a cycle of teaching, a cycle of healing, a cycle of starting a nonprofit organization. The way that you express showing up, loving, and creating will change and evolve through your life. And a lot of times people are like wanting to know what is just the right thing to do. And I say, well, just work on the being, and the do will show up. The right doing will be a response to the needs of the moment in your environment.
Mhm. Mhm. To you showing up.
Yes, yes. And the more you show up as presence and love and creativity, the more opportunities will show up for you to express that in new ways and ever expanding ways. So it's not like, oh, there's one particular thing where that's going to be my sole purpose.
Mhm.
That it's a much kind of broader connotation. And again, the soul is this capacity for at one-ment. And so when you're at one with the world around you, you're tuned into what's needed and more responsive to that. So it's this kind of dynamic mode of being, but then responding to what's needed in whatever time and place you're living in.
Mhm. So can you describe a bit the difference between like your soul and your personality?
Yeah, absolutely, Amy. And the way that I'm speaking about soul is more the pure consciousness that is at the heart of our being. Okay, consciousness and soul are synonymous terms. Okay, but we have this pure consciousness, and which is the soul. But then we also have this personality that the soul expresses through. And this is the walking, talking Amy and Ariana.
Mhm.
All that you think, all that you feel, your physical body, and the way that your soul expresses itself in the world is more the personality. And a kind of a fun analogy is, think of the soul as the actor, and the personality is the temporary role the actor is playing. Okay, so the
Mm.
idea is to bring the pure light of the soul through your personality, so that the soul, even though there's soul in the personality, it's the part of you that isn't quite as pure, isn't as awake.
Mhm.
Where the soul, the way I'm using the term, is the part of you that is awake and knows itself as love, knows itself as this dynamic creative energy, knows itself as this pure present awareness. And the personality is that part of us that's learning all of that, and embodying those qualities of the soul to a greater degree.
Mhm.
So, oh, go ahead.
And how do we know, or how do you know that a
Mhm.
soul exists? People use the word soul purpose, old
Mhm.
soul, new soul, they throw these terms
Yeah.
around. But how do we even
Uh-huh.
know what that a soul exists?
Well, Amy, I think that is different for everyone, and that we can, talk about these things on a conceptual basis, but we really know through our own direct experience of connection with the soul. And for me, that the first time that happened was when I was 14 years old, and I was sitting on the banks of the Russian River in Northern California, and this is where my families would spend summers. And I was sitting there on one beautiful sunny day looking at the light through the trees, and suddenly something occurred, and it was this magical moment. And it was as though the clouds had parted, although there were no clouds in the sky. It was the clouds of my own perception, my own thinking parted, and I was able to experience life in a whole new way. And it was brighter and more dynamic, and the colors were more vivid. And there was just this whole other quality to my experience that I hadn't experienced before in my life. And after a time of this, some words came into my mind, and they were, "What is real?" And in an instant, I knew beyond the shadow of a doubt that all that I had been taught by my teachers, by my parents, by my culture was a very limited perspective on life. And that there was so much more to reality. There was so much more to life. And I had been given a glimpse of that greater reality. And for me, I didn't have words at the time to describe it as soul contact or as an experience of awakening. But it led me to years and years of spiritual and psychological work and study and, teaching and training and meditation practice because I wanted to go back there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, kind of, well, it was completely magical. And life was bigger and brighter and bolder than ever before. And so for me, that I verified that contact through my own direct experience of some greater life force that I was in contact with. And so, for everyone, they have different ways of verifying that. Their experiences of soul contact, they may have come maybe in childbirth or maybe, in a creative moment of painting or, playing a musical instrument or maybe in meditation. But, people who are on the path have had those moments of awakening. And those moments of awakening are awakening to our own soul, which has the capacity for at one ment with all life. Okay, so you feel like, okay, this is something much bigger than me because the soul knows that it's part of a greater life. It's just the personality has the limitations of separation and feels like it's separate.
Well, and I love you always do such a nice job of making it really clear
Mm.
how this all works in a way that makes sense and I think is really tangible for people
Mhm.
to understand sort of the separation between soul and personality. And when you do have that moment, and I think many people who are on a spiritual journey or who feel connected with their soul had a moment where suddenly everything shifted for them, and I know I certainly did. and
Mhm.
and you it almost becomes like a seeking of finding that moment again where you feel like you can really connect.
Mhm. Absolutely. And what happens is that there is a connection that is established between your everyday consciousness and your soul consciousness. And the more that you cultivate that connection, then the stronger it becomes. And so, ideally, that as progress through a path of growth and expansion, that soul contact becomes your everyday awareness. And we see great beings who express that on a very consistent basis. And we're all, in various stages of that process. And what happens is that the soul contact is first, or the awakening to the vibration of your soul, that comes first, and then we're called to embody and express those impulses that we touched upon.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
so the
how do we so when we're called upon to do that, how do we
uh-huh
know that that's what our soul wants us to do. And as a soul on in a human body, how do we know that we're on the right path for our soul?
Okay, great question. Well, if you look at those three primary qualities of love and presence and creativity, when you're feeling those kind of moving through you, you can be pretty sure that that's the soul moving through your life and expressing itself through your personality. So, when love is showing up, the soul is showing up.
Mhm.
When creative ideas are being thrown around in a meeting, that's soul presence. So a lot of times you can tell by the result, but the way that it feels as you're expressing this more pure qualities of the soul is that it feels really good. you know, you feel content. There's a sense of brightness. Oftentimes there's a real sense of joy. And you may have momentary experiences of, feeling afraid or discomfort, but it's in a larger context of, oh yes, I'm on the right track. And
Mhm.
you really feel that. And I'm sure you've experienced that at times in your life. And then other times where, you have been attempting to do something where it hasn't felt like it's really right and on track.
Mhm. Well, and I
Um,
think oftentimes we can force ourselves because we're on one path and we've already gotten so far down that path. Even though
mhm.
we know it doesn't feel right, we don't wanna turn back.
Mhm.
And usually it
Yeah.
doesn't end up we just end up deeper down that hole. And
Uh-huh.
I'm
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
imagining that that is not being in line with what your soul
Yeah.
wants for you or that
It
that growth.
Mhm, and what that feels like is full of tension and, and not as enlivening and life generating. But oftentimes what we'll do is we'll kind of get attached to doing a particular thing as a way of soul expression. And then we'll hold on to that long past when that particular cycle is over.
Mhm.
Um, so that's another kind of trap that people can get into.
Well, and I
But
really like the concept of these cycles and breaking things up as in terms of different phases of life. I think so often I certainly see it in my practice. I'm sure you see it in your work as well. Is people feel like they have chosen a path and that has to be the path that they need to stay on. They've invested money, they've invested time, they've invested sweat equity. And so
Mhm,
even though they're unhappy, they're not willing to get off that path.
yeah, and the very kind of nature of soul consciousness is that it's dynamic and ever changing, and responsive to the needs of the moment. And it's full of life and growth. And it may be that one cycle you had something particular to give or to learn, and maybe you've given all you can in that arena, and it's time to move on to something else, or you've learned all the lessons involved in that particular cycle or that particular arena. So it's being attuned to, the soul is a very dynamic process. But one of the ways that you can really tell if you're on the right track is that you get all kinds of affirmations around you.
Can you
And
explain that a little more deeply?
Mhm.
Because I think this is a big piece in terms of being able to open yourself up to a higher level of consciousness is the awareness of affirmations and how that can present itself.
Yeah, well, one of the best ways it happens is if you're thinking in a particular way, people will show up around you and affirm that. Right? They will validate those experiences that feel expansive and good to you. They may give you encouragement, or the resources that you need will appear. One time I was contemplating doing some additional training for my career and needed kind of what was a big chunk of money to do this training. And someone just gave it to me out of the blue, and it was the exact dollar amount that was needed. Okay.
Mm.
And, it was totally unsolicited, and it was like the universe was saying, okay, you want to do this, here you go. So you find this sense of support. One time I, started into a meditation class many years ago, and the teacher talked about a particular Tibetan Buddhist teacher. And I was really intrigued by this. So a week later, I was helping a friend coordinate an estate sale and was just there to, be an extra hand for her. And there was a book by this particular teacher that was there, among her things. And I said, "Oh, that's like the new meditation, that I'm doing, that the teacher was recommending this work." And she said, "I don't know where that book came from. It's not mine."
Huh.
So,
So, I hear a lot of people now saying, well, isn't that just a coincidence? Or,
mhm. Yeah,
maybe
it could
that's not
be.
really that's
Mhm,
not really your soul
mhm. Yeah.
telling you you're on the right path.
Well, it could be a coincidence, but if you look at it like when we're tuned into soul awareness, the soul is at one with everything else. Okay, consciousness is at one with everything else. So, those kind of quote unquote coincidences, you have to look at, well, what are the odds of that happening?
Mhm.
What are the odds of that happening?
Mhm.
Of someone gifting you the exact dollar amount that you needed, or a book suddenly showing up out of the blue at somebody's home who's never seen it before. You have to go, okay, there's that's the time when you pay attention. But if you look at it from the perspective of that there is this beautiful divine intelligence moving through all of life all the time, and when we're in harmony with our own soul, we're in harmony with that greater life. Okay, and so those kind of things can really happen. I think there's this silent and kind of conscious intelligence that's moving through life always, and we're just, if we align ourselves with it, then the things that we need really show up.
Mhm. And so
So,
you say affirmations, but I think other people would say signs, right?
mhm, or confirmations, yeah.
Confirmations, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like the universe saying yes, like you are
Mhm.
on the right track. Or,
Mhm.
I use this analogy just recently about like Hansel and Gretel, like following the cookie crumbs home, or
Mhm.
like, okay, yes, you get these yeses from the world around you.
Right. And, I'm just obviously playing contrarian here a little bit, but I know
Yes.
you and I have talked about the ways that
Uh-huh.
this shows up in
Yeah,
in life. So,
and I think it's really important to play contrarian and to question, and to ask those kind of difficult questions, and not just to have blind faith about any of this.
mhm.
And a lot of these things that I'm talking about are, I speak about with a degree of certainty because I've been testing them out for, a lot of years in my life. And
Mhm.
so to jump to, oh, that's a sign, like, well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Always to have a little bit of skepticism is a really positive thing. But when you look at, does the evidence line up all the way around? And do the affirmations, do they continually point you in a particular direction? Then it's a good thing is to listen.
Well, and I think it's usually not just one affirmation. It's usually
Yes.
like you'll see a few things
Mhm.
that I always say it's like that song, things that make you go, "Hmm."
Mhm.
Like, if you're paying enough attention, you'll see multiple things show up kind of simultaneously that just make you scratch your head and wonder.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I think the important thing is that you don't totally discount them or totally rely just on that sign to give direction.
Right.
You use your own discernment, and it's a bigger process. But to just negate them out of the blue doesn't feel right.
Right.
nor does just blindly, oh, okay, I'm going to go there.
Right. Right. Then you
But
could
it's
end
kind
yourself in trouble, find yourself in trouble in another way.
of right, right. So you want to, does something resonate with your own heart? Does it feel attuned to your own soul? You do those kind of check-ins. Okay, what is this telling me? Where is this leading me? And
Mhm.
if that resonates with everything else that you're feeling, then it kind of adds to the mix,
Mhm.
adds to the affirmative mix, if that
Right.
makes sense.
Yeah. Makes complete sense to me.
Yeah.
So one last question before we wrap up today. And I know a lot of times people talk about this notion of soul groups or soul tribes,
Mhm.
particularly when people have passed and people talk about, my soul tribe from the other side, or even my soul tribe in this life. Can you talk a little bit about who's in our soul tribe and how do we know when someone's in our soul tribe and our souls on the other side helping to guide us,
Mhm.
or is that just something we say to make ourselves feel better?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question, Amy. Because I feel like there is a lot of misinformation or misinterpretation of the idea of soul tribe. So I'll give you my best take on it. But that I believe we're all a part of a soul group. And it's the same way that we're all part of a biological family or a family of origin. That's our, kind of genetic tribe. That we also have a soul group or a soul tribe that we're a part of. And it's souls that are of the outer form may be really different. Like sometimes people misinterpret soul tribe to think, oh, they're people who are in the same religion or spiritual path I am, or they're the people in my yoga class, or they're the people who think the way I do, or
Or work with me, the people I work with.
yeah, and so it's something much deeper. It's not so much about the outer package, but it's about the inner vibration. It's if you can imagine, it's like you're cut of the same cloth, and that you have a similar purpose, a similar vision for life. You're working on the same thing, although you may be expressing it and doing it in really different ways. And this soul tribe is all over the planet, and they're different occupations and different nationalities and different religions, but that essential quality of soulfulness is the same. And for instance, there are soul tribes that are scientists who are working on that level to benefit humanity. There are soul tribes that are involved with the arts, soul tribes that are more teachers and healers, soul tribes that are more related to religion. And so there are all kinds of different soul tribes. And there are some that synthesize many of those elements as well. So, it's a whole, it's a mode of being, it's a certain vibration. Soul tribe when you meet someone and you just have a sense like, oh, yeah, yeah, that's a sister, that's a brother.
Mhm.
And I'm
Well,
sure
people
you
talk
felt
about
that.
soul sisters, right? Or
Uh huh.
a soulmate, which doesn't necessarily have to be the person that you're in a relationship with.
Right. It could be people who you are just, close with in your soul tribe. And sometimes there's an overlap with your biological family. Okay. So, for instance, my mother is very much, soul tribe to me. We share a deep soul connection. And yet I know many people and they don't have that kind of connection with their mother. So it's a very individual kind of thing, or some members of your family may be part of your tribe, and they would be the ones that are more you naturally more resonate with.
But could members of your soul tribe, could you not resonate with them, but they're there to teach you something to grow your soul?
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So it could be that, and even it could be that the outer form, like the outer way that they express themselves, it doesn't really resonate with you. But you know their soul tribe and you have something to learn from them. There are a couple of teachers who I have gone to their workshops or read their books years ago, and they didn't really resonate with me outwardly, but that there was something that I needed to learn that they were teaching.
Hmm.
And there was a real clear resonance of that. And so, I got what I needed and, moved on. Um, but, members of the soul tribe can be in a body, or they can be out of incarnation on the other side. So there are, tremendous helpers and healers and teachers and resources and support, both in this, physical world of form that we inhabit, but also in the subtle worlds on a
Hmm.
soul level. And so when you start tapping into your tribe more and start tuning into, well, what is my tribe and who are a part of my tribe and what is my tribe's collective purpose? What you often feel is an incredible amount of support on every level,
Hmm.
both from the people in your life or new people showing up, um, that, were never there before, but there's a strong resonance with them.
Well, and I think when we think about emotional health and well being, which is always part of my heart and soul,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
is when we can trust that there are people around us, both guiding us here on in this physical body, but also on other spiritual planes, perhaps,
Mhm.
that there's a sense that I'm okay, and
Mhm.
that gives a real freedom to letting go. I think of a lot of what we hold on to emotionally is trying to control everything to make
Mhm.
ourselves believe that we're going to be okay.
Mhm. Absolutely. And we are, hardwired for connection. And so when we feel like we are part of a tribe, of any kind, it helps us to be stronger, to feel safe, to feel more love. It just brings out the best in us when we feel that, sense of connection. And I think that the soul tribe is a whole layer of connection that a lot of people miss out on,
Hmm.
that's available, an energetic support and as an outer support, as well. Um,
So we have to wrap up for today, but I'm sure,
okay.
or I hope, that one of the things that my listeners are thinking about right now is how do I connect to my soul and my soul tribe?
Mhm.
So I have had the incredible privilege of having you lead me in meditation many times. And I always, when you and I speak, kind of crave those those moments because I know I'm going to be taken to a place that just feels completely blissful. And so in our next episode, you're going to take the listeners through a meditation to connect more deeply with their soul. And I'm excited for people to hopefully have that opportunity or start the process of being able to connect with their soul, because it's a process and it's not something the first time I think that you're automatically going to get there. But I do think you do a beautiful job of helping people get there pretty quickly.
Yeah,
Um,
I would love to do that. And I would also think that a lot of your listeners already do have a degree of soul contact, and that this would just support that deepening and broadening and enriching that process that they're already engaged in.
mhm. So I just want to thank you again for today. And if anybody is interested in seeing more about your work or even booking a session with you, can you tell us where they can go to do that?
Yes, you can go to my website, and it's arianagarrett.com, Ariana GARRETT.com, and just sign up there and take a look around. I've been doing a blog for many years and do regular blog posts, and you can get in touch with me through that site.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Ariana. I really, I always get off any conversation we have and just feel lighter and brighter and more connected to myself and the world around me. And you are such a gift, I think. And I'm excited that I have the opportunity to speak with you and hopefully bring your gifts out into the world, because we are definitely in need of this light right now.
Oh, thank you so much, Amy. And likewise, it's such a pleasure to support you and to connect with you and to, be a guest today. So I love what you're doing in the world, and what you represent is such a beautiful point of light and of connection for people. So thank you for doing what you do.
And we will hear from you next week on the space in between the space between with your meditation. So thanks, Ariana.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Like what you heard today and want to hear more? Wondering what comes next and what it all means? Head over to Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, or anywhere you get your podcasts and hit subscribe. Also, if you could take a minute to rate and review my podcast, I would really appreciate it. Stay tuned as we continue to explore life, death, and the space between.